But today we're going to do something different. We had a YouTuber actually respond to one of our videos, and we really appreciate him. His name is Philip Arm. He wrote us, asked us. We said, sure, great, go for it. He sent us the link. We watched it, and I wasn't initially, Lacey hasn't seen this yet, just FYI. But I watched it, and initially I was like, oh, we're not going to bother responding. But then it got, within a couple of minutes, it got kind of wild. And so I thought, okay, I'll watch the rest of it. And so I watched the rest of it. And he kind of inadvertently brings up a lot of stuff that Lacey and I have complained about for months. We just never have enough time because we only have enough time for our schedules to do one 90-minute show a week. That's all we got, because they take a lot of prep time too. It's not like, it takes at least 5 to 10 hours of research, depending on the episode, right? So for us, it's kind of like, wow. And so he brought up a lot of stuff that we have all this extra research we never get in because we're trying to keep it tight. But he brought up this stuff, so I thought, well, we'll just go over his video today because he inadvertently steps into a bunch of this stuff. So the video we're doing, The Ramsey Show, it's George Camel and Ken Coleman, or as we sometimes call them, Skippy and Froopty-Doop. And they're watching a TikTok video where a guy's talking about living on $25 an hour. And then what he does is he puts in an average budget, the national average budget, right? You can argue with his version of the budget up and down, whatever. But what he's talking about is really simple. He's talking about what's called a minimum budget, right? For an individual. And what a minimum budget basically is how much does a person need to make, right? Or what do they need for expenses in their budget in order to be able to survive and work, live and work? That's it. It doesn't usually cover medical costs or anything else. It's just, can you keep your workers alive? That's it that goes into that budget. Now, Lacey's nodding her head because we've seen this before. If you've worked with finance and clients, this is a pretty regular thing where you're looking at the minimum budget thing, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, what this guy has done, and we didn't get into, we wanted to, but it would have taken forever, is he's talking about a living wage, right? And the way a living wage is calculated, and we'll get more into that, is all these universities hundreds of universities across the country, they'll break down areas of their state into regions, and they'll figure what's the average minimum budget that people need to survive in that region, right? And that'll be that, for that region, the average minimum budget. And it could be different, right? And then what they figure is, okay, to meet that amount of money, how much do you need to be making a year before tax? That's what the living wage is. Now, in some areas, the living wage is $10 an hour. In some areas, it's 50, right? It's spread throughout the country. It depends on where you live, right? In New York, $15 an hour is not, you can't survive on $15 an hour working full time and live. But $15 an hour in, say, like a small town like Sandy, Oregon, it's probably plenty, right? So all this data gets compiled, and the university that handles all this is MIT in Texas, right? They have the big grant for this, and they've been doing this forever. I mean, for a long time. And what they do is they take all those together, and they build a basically what's called a living wage calculator. And it calculates the living wage. And so you type in a zip code and it'll tell you what the living wage is. And you type in the household size, 4 people, this is the living wage. 2 people, this is the living wage, right? It's great. Governments use it. That's how they figure out how to distribute resources like welfare, police, Businesses use it to figure out, okay, do we want to build a factory there? Because if I'm building a factory and I can only pay the workers $20 an hour, I'm not going to build the factory in a town where the living wage is 25, because it's going to be hard to find workers. But if I find a town where the living wage is 15 and I'm offering $20 an hour, I'm never going to have a problem finding workers for my factory. It's also a good tool for, do I want to market to this area or not? So businesses use it to basically make decisions about how they want to save money or build things. So this is universally used, and it's MIT does it, and the federal government uses it, your state government, your local government, most businesses, and any academic who's studying employment and things like that. This is a universal thing. And the funny thing is the guy picks 25 bucks an hour. And the reason he picks that is because it's two things. One, last year in 2022, $25.02 was the average living wage nationally. So the average of all those regions together, right? The entire United States, that was the living wage. You needed that much on average in the United States, right? That's all we're talking about. The thing we were focusing on this video is all we're talking about is this is an average need. It's all been baked into the cake. But then the guys on the Ramsey show don't understand that. They think he's talking about an actual budget, and they're criticizing him on saying, well, you just need to cut things out of your budget. When they don't realize, no, this is a national average, right?